everyone. I hope this works. Sorry, it's a little annoying. OBS settings were all fine yesterday and then I turned it on today and it's not fine anymore. It says that the stream health is really bad. So hopefully this isn't appalling and there isn't like 8 million buffering instances. The preview looks okay. So hi! Nice to see everybody. Sorry again that I'm a little bit late. I'm also looking very washed out at the moment. Wow. Yeah, I don't look terribly healthy. I promise I'm doing much better than I was. I'm not sick anymore. So hello, happy Wednesday. I hope everyone is doing well. I am okay. The baby is asleep. Hopefully he'll remain asleep for a little while. That would be nice. There we go. That would be very nice. I have, as you can see, my phone somehow through magic connected to the screen. So you'll be able to see the app that I'm going to use. Oh, Nikki, thank you. My sister-in-law's here. Hi, Nikki. So the app that we're looking at today is called Qlone, and it's really, really exciting. It's an app that I saw trialed at ASOR, the conference we were at recently. Excuse me. Sorry, I am still going to cough a little bit. But the app basically turns your smartphone, and they have an iPhone and an Android version, into a 3D scanner, which is amazing and incredible. And the presentation that this was introduced in was done by one of the people who developed this app. And he gave a brief introduction about 3D scanning, and he said that the main problem with 3D scanning, or two problems, is very time consuming and it's very expensive. You have to specially train staff to be able to use it. You have to then pay for the use of the scanner. Sorry, I'm just going to move that. There we go. Look. It's Josh and our nearly 6-year-old Piper. So anyway, 3D scanning, it's very expensive. You have to train staff to be able to use the scanner itself. You then have to find a scanner, rent time on it. And of course, you've got the problem of transporting archaeological artifacts from either a museum or a collection to the scanner and then transporting them back again. And as you can understand, museums aren't always terribly thrilled about people taking objects from their collection away. So that can be tricky. And it's also just very time consuming. And there's another method called RTI, reflection transformation imaging, that involves taking approximately 8 billion photos of an object, which produces fantastic results, but again is very, very time consuming. And the beauty of this app is that it turns every smartphone or iPad that it's installed on into a portable 3D scanner. So you can take it out. Josh, I don't know how to turn off all notifications on my phone. I love that you think I do, but I really don't. I'll work that out for next time. So the joy of this is that you can load the app onto a phone or a tablet, take it out into the field if you're an archaeologist, or to a museum if you're a curator, and scan objects either as they are taken out of the ground in excavation or in the museum setting, which museums tend to be a lot happier with because it doesn't involve people taking their stuff away. It's also surprisingly fast, relatively easy. I can't tell you much about the quality of the scans that it produces, just because I don't have the experience with the big standalone scanners to really speak about that. But it does produce some pretty cool results. And it also gives you the option in the app to edit the images that you make. So that's my spiel about how awesome 3D scanning is and why you really want it on your phone. So we are going to get started. Let me get that fired up. So this is the app. Let us move that down a little bit. There we go. So this is the app. This is what it looks like when you load it up. If you have already taken various scans, they'll be viewable here in the gallery area. I have not done any at least none worth saving, which is why my gallery area is empty. But what you do is you just press this little plus button down on the bottom right of the screen, and look, you can see everything. You also have this delightful mat. Let's just move that. So that mat thing is something that you can print from the Qlone website. It's the scanning mat. You need it for scanning your object. And what you have to do is make sure that all four corners of the mat are in view of your camera. So you line your camera up and you can see this nice little dome thing, and each rectangle on that dome represents a photo that your phone is going to take. So you have to fill in all of those rectangles with, it just really takes the rectangle away when it's done. But you have to do all of those before that it will actually render and give you a scan. So all we're going to do is just press the record button in the top right hand of the screen, and I just start. You can obviously move your camera around. I find it easier to do this. And if you miss areas, you just go back to it. And you can see the image starting to be populated in the bottom right hand of my screen. Or at least you could. It's gone away now. And I was a little worried the first time I did this. And I've scanned this tablet before. And it makes it into this bizarre pyramid shape, which it definitely isn't. And I was very worried because I actually tested this out in the hotel bar after the presentation with the gentleman who gave the presentation, and he scanned like a container of sugar packages, and it was obviously flat on the top, and it didn't scan terribly well. And he said that flat-topped objects don't always scan very well. So I was very worried because you can see on the bottom right of the screen, it looks like a pyramid. And this is a relatively flat tablet. It's really not a pyramid. But it renders actually with no pyramids, which is a wonderful thing. So then you just have to get the top of the object. And he also said, very interestingly, really the only limit of size for objects to scan, the only limit is by how big you can print this scanning mat. He said, theoretically, if you can get a scanning mat big enough to fit the object on, then you can scan it. Okay, so once you've filled in all of the little rectangles, excuse me, it starts processing and rendering, which is very, very exciting. And it does the spinny thing. So we're just going to leave that for a minute to finish. It doesn't take a terribly long time, which is nice. And again, really helps with things like scanning in the field if you're an archaeologist, or even if you're a student and you have access to material. It's very easy. And there we go. It's suddenly not a pyramid. Hooray! I like it when tablets aren't pyramids. And this tablet, by the way, is, oops, sorry. It's the plague amulet that Dr. Jeremiah Peterson made for us. And it has an extract of the Era epic, and it was intended to ward against plague, which is super cool. So this is our scanned object, and you can move it around. It's really cool, and then you can zoom in. So actually, whoa, what we see is a surprisingly clear scan of the cuneiform, and this is something that can be problematic. So I'm trying to turn it the right way up, and I'm all thumbs, it won't let me. Woo. There we go. This is something that can be very problematic, is getting an accurate scan of the cuneiform shapes. But that's not bad. Let's see if we can... I was going to say, let's see if we can read any of this, but I'm not sure I could read this anyway, because my cuneiform is so rusty. Oh, I also can't move it up so we can see it. Whoa! Ha ha ha. Oh god. Okay, so the sign on the top, there we go. The sign on the top left. You know, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to make a massive fool of myself. Actually, if you look on the screen, like third line down, all the way at the right, that is a core sign with like a we sign next to it, or a P sign. That's pretty cool. That worked rather nicely. You can also turn it over and scan the back. So you see on the top right of the screen the little blue rectangle with the arrow next to it. If you turn the object over, we're going to try this. I tried this earlier, it didn't work, but we're going to try it. If you turn it over and rescan it, the app should automatically merge it into one file. So if we look at the moment, the back of the tablet is absolutely blank. And actually it looks like that. There's more cuneiform written on it. So we're going to try and scan the back and see what happens there. It may or may not work. So if it doesn't work, just keep this beautiful image of cuneiform in. Sorry, I'm not trying to zoom in and out that fast. Just keep this image of beautiful cuneiform in your mind. These are the results you can get. And as you can see, I'm very incompetent, and even I managed to do that. So with a little bit of practice, I suspect this would be a very, very useful tool. But we're going to press the button again, the little rectangle button, and we are going to try, oh, I have to press the record button. We are going to try and scan the back of this and see if we can get that to work. And remember, if you miss any of the rectangles, you have to go back and rescan them. Otherwise, none of this will work. It's actually quite satisfying filling in all of these rectangles. It's like popping bubble wrap. And I can't be the only person in the world who finds that satisfying. I know I'm not, because my sisters enjoy it, but maybe it's just a weird family trait. And what you do with RTI imagery, the reflective transformation imagery, is you basically make this kind of dome, but you have to move the camera around and take images all the way around it. I mean, maybe not this many images, but as many as you can. And then you run them through a computer program, which basically does the same thing. There we go. It merges all of the images together. Oh, I have something on Twitter. Hello, Twitter. Josh is right. I probably should have turned off my notifications, but I have no idea how to do that. Oh, no. There we go. Haha! So now it's going to render some more and process. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Excuse me. So, while this processes, let's see if we have any questions. I'm sure we don't have questions. Oh, Paul used to use the 6-figure 3D scanners at Lucasfilm. I'd be very interested to see how this compares. I'm assuming probably not fantastically, because it's an iPhone app, but that would be interesting. Excuse me. Let's see. Main Gun 07, this would also be good for scanning classic car parts for a CNC equipped machines shop to make a replacement part. Yeah, that's a good point. And I would hope that this would be able to produce high enough quality that you could use it for that kind of thing. Okay, so it's done the processing and it's doing its automatic merging thing. Oh, and you can't see because of my head, but it keeps the original scan in the bottom left. So we've got that. So we have the front and the back. Now we press the arrow button and hopefully it's, oh, thank you. It's actually, I have to press the arrow. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. No, I just want to look at it. Silly phone. No, that's, what on earth is this? Sorry, I have no idea what's going on. I just wanted to look at it. Ha, there we go. Nope. Oh, whoa. Okay, it's not, there we are. And we have, oh, we don't have anything on the back. That sucks. So for some reason that failed. Okay, so it's got confused. So this is the scan of the back that we did. So that's the reverse of the tablet. Well, I think, I'm not sure which one I started with. But that's, and then, sorry, I don't know if my fingers are cold or what, but it's not picking up. But then did not merge it properly because there's nothing on the back. That's annoying. But even though it didn't work perfectly, it's given us a pretty good view. You know, I'm going to try this again just to see if I can get it to work, because that would be awesome. And I strongly suspect that this is down to user error, because I have seen this in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing with it actually merge the two scans very neatly, and it worked incredibly well. Vlad Tepes is asking what this tablet is modelled after. This is a plague amulet. It's actually in the British Museum, but it's I think Neo-Assyrian plague amulet with an extract of the Epic of Error written on it. So it was intended to ward off plague. I can't tell you if it actually worked or not, but it's pretty cool. So we go on the top, make sure we scan everything. Now for those who are just joining, I've done this once already, and then I tried to scan the other side and merge the two and it didn't work. So I'm giving it another try, and if it doesn't work, then we will move on to something else. Maybe answer some questions if you have any questions, talk about how awesome this is, just generally. It's going to be super cool. I know friends who are going out into the field for the archaeology season around Christmas time, and at least one of them already has it preloaded on her phone to start scanning stuff while she's there. But it's very, very cool. Processing. Okay, so this is what you get after the initial scan, which is amazing and absolutely beautiful, but you do get this blank thing on the back. And I'm wondering if we're having issues merging the two, because this has really no defining features, whether it's on the front, whether for which side of the tablet you're on. Let's give it a go. Try again. So we press the little rectangle button on the bottom, turn it over, and then press the record button and go do 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 do. And what we're doing is we are scanning all of those little rectangles, and my phone is taking many, many, many photographs, all of those rectangles. And for people who missed the initial explanation, you have to make sure that you keep all four corners of the scanning mat in view of your phone, because that kind of anchors everything properly so that it knows what it's looking at. Oh, I missed two, so we have to go back and get those or it won't work. I actually have a malachite cat from Egypt that I was considering scanning, but it's rather tall and I think I might have trouble with the mat. Scan everything. Da, 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 da. I feel like I should put some music on for you guys to listen to while I do this. It can't be terribly interesting. Oh, there we go. And you see again on the bottom right we have this pyramid look. That doesn't seem to affect the shape of the final scan once it's all been processed, which is reassuring because this is not a pyramid, this is a relatively flat object. Speaking of pyramids, did you guys see the news story about a photographer having sex on top of the Great Pyramid at Giza? That is not cool. Brian Stevens is wondering what it uses for distance to scan the target adjustment. I know what all of those words mean individually. I don't know what it means in a sentence, I'm afraid. And Paul is saying, I can't imagine how much time this will save for 3D animators who need to populate a scene with objects. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's fantastic. It's really, really clever. And it does give you the option, maybe once I've finished this scan, we'll move on and look at what we can do after you have a finished 3D scan. Excuse me. Okay, it's still doing the automatic merging thing. Oh, come on, phone. And they're asking what this smells like. This looks like delicious toast bread. Interesting. It promises not toast. I'm not going to try and eat it. It would hurt my teeth quite a lot. Unless you have actual toast that you're saying looks delicious. I don't know. Yeah, no, it failed again, so we have a blank thing on the bottom. But we do have a rather attractive scan, at least of the top of a tablet. And I suspect that if I worked a little bit harder at this, I'd be able to get it to work. And the team that made this are still working on improving it. So if it isn't user error and it's a fault with the software, I imagine that will be resolved. If not quickly, then relatively soon. So what we can do, we can paint it. That's exciting. I'm not sure why I'd want to do that, but I can paint it if I want to. I can pick up the color and then paint. Aha, so if it misses something and you feel like filling it in post-production, you can do that, which is cool. You can, it won't let me do that. Apparently I'm not allowed to select anything. That's boring and very annoying. Ugh, never mind. We're moving on. So let's go back to this one. What we can do once you have your final scan and you like it, and you want to export it for other people to see or export it so you can print it, what you do is you use this little button on the bottom right. There we go. And it gives you the option of importing to things like Sketchfab, which is a 3D model, like storage thing. You can share it with other people via Sketchfab. You can also save it to various file formats. So if you want to do a 3D print of it, you can do that. If you want to make a video of it, you can do that. And you can also share it to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which is very useful. So this is the free version of Qlone. You can pay for like Qlone Pro. I'm not sure if it's actually called Qlone Pro, but you know, the upgraded version, which unlocks different different file formats. So there you go. If once you unlock it, you can export it as many times as you want. And I don't want to do that because I don't want to do that right now. But for free, I can still export to Sketchfab and save it as a GIF or GIF. I think officially I should say that GIF, but that just sounds weird. So we are going to leave that there so you can look at the cuneiform beauty. But that's Qlone. I really like it. I think I need to spend a lot more time learning properly how to use it. But given that I've used it maybe twice in the past 2 months, that just shows you it's really very easy to use, at least to get a relatively basic image from. Highly recommend it to anyone who feels like playing around with 3D scans. And right now I'm going to look through some of the comments and see if we have any questions. Oh, Inimgina says that he ordered a tablet from Jeremiah Peterson. They're fantastic. The quality is amazing. He's a really nice man as well. And actually he makes, so for our Patreon $50 tier, we have, we send people a cuneiform tablet with a thank you message written on it. Sadly, it's not written in Akkadian or Sumerian. It's just English transliterated into cuneiform because I don't have the time right now to compose anything in Akkadian. But he makes those and he ships them out for us, and they're really, really cool. And I want one. I might just have to buy one for myself. Paul, what impact will this have on the stereotypical picture an idiot? An idiot dude might send a lucky lady he doesn't know. And Brian Stevens says, yikes, 3D dick pics might actually become a reality. That is really scary. Really scary. And I hope it doesn't ever happen. Logistically speaking, I imagine using Qlone to make a 3D dick pic could be a little tricky. You'd have to like move the camera around, and you'd have to put your penis on a scanning mat as well, and yeah, interesting. Please don't try. That's not something that we need to do. People are talking about the mat. So Adbrower. So the mat underneath has a checkered pattern, which is the basis for the units. The perspective of the mat gives clues to the height and the distance of the camera in relation to the mat. That's very cool. Thank you. Interesting. So while I'm here, do we have any questions or comments? You probably have me for another 20 minutes before Oliver wakes up and I have to go. So questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, put them in the side chat. I will read them out. Excuse me. Sorry, I keep coughing. And actually, one of the things that I'm going to look up his name because he was a fantastic man. Digital Orientalist. One of the things that the gentleman presenting this software identified as a potential strength of this. Oh, so he's called Dr. Ran Kaftori. He argued that having this kind of software freely available would mean that if things like the Brazilian National Museum fire, while still devastating, would have been slightly different if we had scans of many more of the objects. And because of the cost and difficulties with scanning objects at the moment with standalone scanners, obviously that was not the case. He says that this software would really help to combat that kind of stuff. And in excuse me, combined with that, he also showed us a video. I'm going to put the link. I wrote a brief article about it, but he showed us a video of a project that Qlone did in conjunction with an elementary or middle school, I can't remember, young kids, where they gave a selection of tablets to the children with the app preloaded, and they created a virtual museum for a local museum. They went in and they scanned one object each, and they put it online, and these basically school children created a virtual museum, which is fantastic and very, very helpful, because it really shows both the ease of use but also the potential use for Qlone in the museum industry. There's a real push at the moment to try and get so much material digitized and then put on freely available online collections. So the British Museum, Penn Museum, Oriental Institute, actually the Met as well, have fantastic online collections. You can access their museum records for objects and see images of them. But if you could have a 3D scan, that would be really interesting, because it would allow you to turn objects around. It means visitors who weren't able to actually physically visit the museum could still look at all angles of the object, which is really, really cool. So do we have questions? Paul, Megan, in your work, what advantage will this have over merely a high resolution scan of the top of the tablet? Good question. So one of the problems with 2D representations of cuneiform is that the writing is inherently 3D. At the moment, a lot of translations are done using black and white photographs, colour photographs if they're available in high resolution, and things called hand copies, which is where someone has sat down and physically drawn out the shapes that they see on the tablet. The problem with that is that signs aren't always terribly clear in a 2D copy, especially with a photograph. I don't know, because if you have just one single light source, I mean, this is very, very clearly drawn. It's beautiful. They're not all this beautiful. So if you only have one light source, as you would for a 2D copy, it's actually really, really difficult sometimes to see what the different shapes of the tablet, of the cuneiform are. And actually you can see it in the in the scan that we have, and that's not what I wanted to do, in the scan that we have up here, because you see it's only really, because you see the shadows and the light just from one perspective, it's actually can be quite tricky to see what is a sign and what is just a bump in the clay. Sometimes very shallow signs can almost disappear, which makes it very difficult. So what, and this is actually where RTI images come in, because the end result of an RTI image is like a static scan, but you can move the light source around. So you can like click and drag the light to a different part of the screen, and then the shadows on the object change correspondingly. So you can get a much clearer picture of what you're looking at. What 3D scans do is they allow for 3D printing. I mean, I personally really like that you can move them around and look at all angles. I think that's really, really useful. It gives a much more authentic feel to the materiality of the objects. A lot of the time, if you're learning how to translate, what you're doing is just looking at pictures on a paper, and it's really difficult to get a feel for what these objects actually are. And some cuneiform objects are really, really big, and some are really, really small. Like we have like little letters like that big, but when you've got the cuneiform written on like a piece of paper this size, you really don't get that feeling. So I like it because it does that, but also high quality 3D scans give you the option, obviously, to print them, which means that for scholars who maybe can't travel, don't have the money to travel, aren't allowed in whatever country they're going to. We had a problem with the ASOR conference. Several speakers were denied entry into the United States. So if you are unable to travel for whatever reason to carry out your research, if there are high quality scans like this available online that you can download and print, it means that you can keep producing high quality academic work and not suffer for your lack of ability to travel. Yeah, and it also means that less for academic work, but it means that museums can do things like have printed, like 3D printed objects that they can either sell in gift shops or just have out on display for visitors to handle. Because in my mind, one of the major drawbacks of modern museums is that you can't touch stuff, which is a very good thing. You should not be able to touch ancient artifacts because then they will break and degrade. But if you have 3D printed models, then people can touch them, they can interact with them, and it makes what we do much more relevant and much more interesting to people who just don't want to be academics. So, sorry, that was a very long question. Has anyone really been far even has decided to use even go want to do look more like in cuneiform? Aries 106, I actually don't understand your question. If you could reprint, that would be fantastic. Let's see. Vlad Tepes, museums could also keep originals in a fireproof vault and only display copies. Yep, fantastic. Very good point. Oh, someone here scanned the Louis XIV Bernini sculpture outside the Louvre. That's very cool. Very, very cool. In Imgina, do you know what efforts are being done to update the CDLI with 3D scans? Or is there perhaps a new database that I'm unaware of that is being created somewhere else just for 3D scans? I don't know. I'm sure there are people, the people who run CDLI probably have their eyes on this and are starting to think about how they can do this. I don't know of any purpose-built database for cuneiform objects. I'm just going to look up the name. No, that's wrong. Sorry. It's still wrong. Sorry, everyone. I'm trying to remember Sketchfab. There we go. Sketchfab does have a surprising amount of cuneiform objects available to look at, and actually a couple of different presentations that I went to, at ASOR did involve people, a student and then a professor, making 3D scans of objects. One did some scans of some tablets in the British Museum. One did scans of tablets and foundation cones in at Yale. One of the libraries there has a small cuneiform collection, and those are available on Sketchfab. If you just go to Sketchfab and search for cuneiform, which I'm doing now, I'm going to paste this in the comments, you actually get a surprising amount of cuneiform stuff. And some of these are have been carried out under the auspices of the British Museum. Some of them are just student projects. Some of them I'm not sure where they came from. But they're really, really cool. And again, you do have some issues with resolution sometimes. They're not always especially clear. But people are starting to utilize this technology. I suspect it's going to take a while for it to become more mainstream. But people are doing it, and it's very, very exciting. Mr. Rectangle, I think that's what your name is, said he just downloaded the clone for the iPad Pro. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. I love this. It makes me really excited. It's really, really cool. Steffi is here. Hi, Steffi. Unfortunately, there is not the face of Jesus in this particular piece of toast. At least not that I know of. I could be wrong. I was going to say something else and now I've forgotten. Oh, yes. So the student who scanned the collection from one of the Yale libraries, one of the questions that came up during his session was, how do you make sure that people don't get hold of these 3D files, print them and then try and pass them off as the real thing? We have quite a big problem with black market antiquities trading in our field. People will spend an awful lot of money for this kind of stuff. Not always the most reputable people, not always from the most reputable sources. So the questioner was concerned about, the speaker was concerned about making these files freely available, having people print them and then sell them to maybe museums or libraries who don't have a cuneiform specialist on hand to check whether or not they're actually real or if they're high quality copies. And you do get modern fakes of this stuff being made. A couple of the Gudea statues, I think, are modern fakes. So that is a challenge. And one thing that was suggested was putting kind of like a watermark. So if you see down this side is blank. There's usually on cuneiform tablets at least a small section of blank space. I mean, you can't do it on the bottom. I don't think you can see that you can't do it on the bottom because there's cuneiform on the bottom. But on the sides, maybe putting an imprint in saying, like, created by Bob Stevens or created by the British Museum or like copyright British Museum trustees or something like that. So that anyone who takes a close look at it will know that it's not an authentic antique. Someone also suggested embedding like a microchip in it so that you could carefully control like how many were made, who had them, and then you could track them, which would be very interesting. And the way that the student in question is currently managing that is he's only sharing his scans. So his scans, you can look at them on Sketchfab. You cannot download them and then use them to make your own 3D prints. The way he's dealing with this is he's controlling who has access to the 3D files. So he said he's had a professor email him asking for a copy, and he was able to verify this man's identity and credentials as a professional in the field, and so he felt comfortable sharing that with him. But he said that it was not something that he would probably be happy sharing more widely, which was an interesting implication that I actually hadn't thought about. What do you do if you have a really high quality copy of an ancient object and you have people trying to pass it off as the real thing? Obviously, experts can tell the difference. But there's not always an expert on hand to tell you whether or not what you're looking at is real. or not. We've got lots of people talking about toast in the chat, which is fascinating. Inam Gina, this is exciting. Thank you for the link. I'm going to check it out. Yeah, it's a really, there's a lot of stuff in there. It's very cool. Paul, do you have a green screen setup, or is it software just masking your as-is background? It's a green screen setup. Yeah, because I know there are ways that I can do it with software, but I don't know what those ways are. And I know how to use the green screen, so I have that done. And actually, if I move so you can see the green behind my hands. It's not ideal, but it does hide my really, really tall bed, which is currently unmade and covered in baby clothes. So I'm a fan of you guys seeing the Ishtar Gate rather than that. Vlad Tepes, it would take a lot of effort to make a 3D print look ancient. It would, especially because most prints tend to be done in plastic at the moment. But there is a way to print in gypsum, which is very interesting. And again, I've not seen them, but I've been told that it's actually, they're the gypsum prints are very, very different to actual clay tablets and would be very easy to tell apart. But as this technology gets better and better and better, I can see that there will be a need for verification of authenticity. Brian Stevens, it might also be very useful for making casts. That's a very good... Oh, and 3D wax printers, which would make silver casting go much further. Those are both fantastic ideas. And again, I'm sure people are really taking advantage of this stuff. I'd be very surprised if the jewellery industry hasn't started using 3D wax printers. I don't know for a fact, but it would be surprising. Alias fake name misses the bed and the cats. I'm sorry. I will bring the cats back at some point to say hello. D8LJ, it's because behind... people are talking about toast because this lovely image, that one, is a piece of toast in a microwave oven. Well, there we go. There's no arguing with that, really, is there? It is a piece of toast in an oven. Christy Santiago, yay, baby clothes. I bet that they are all adorable. They are mostly adorable. They are. We have some good baby clothes. I have an adorable baby, really, who is... I'm so grateful he stayed asleep because this was really fun and would not have been possible with a small child sitting on my lap because he'd have tried to eat the paper and eat my phone and eat the tablet, and that would not have ended well. Anyway, we're nearly at the hour mark. Are there any more questions before I wrap up? I don't want to head out if there are people wanting to ask questions, but I also need to get ready for my son waking up, which will happen within the next 20 minutes. And if I'm very lucky, I can start dinner or something. It's an exciting life I lead, people. You have no idea. So do we have more questions? Or are we done for today? We might be done. Okay, I'm calling it because no one is asking questions, which is great. Oh, Aries 106, your baby agrees with us that tablets look like food. I mean, he thinks that most things look like food. To be fair, I would not take him as an arbiter of what does and doesn't look like food. Because if it stays still and he can shove it in his mouth, he will do, which includes the cats, who bizarrely still stay still and let him shove their tails in his mouth. Yes. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed it. It's really great and it's really, really easy to use. And again, I suspect that once I've spent some more time working with it, it'll be... it'll produce even better results. But it's called Qlone. The website I think is qlone.com, and if you just search on the App Store for Qlone, you'll find it. It's super cool and amazing. And I'm now going to go and scan really anything in my house. I have this little cat figurine that I tried to scan earlier, but it was kind of wonky. So I might scan that again and try and fix the wonkiness because I like my cat figurine. Right, thank you everybody. I had lots of fun. I hope you had lots of fun. And I will see you definitely next Wednesday, but also this weekend, because on the weekend, probably on Sunday, I am going to be doing a cooking in cuneiform live stream. I know that sounds very exciting. It basically means that I am going to set the live stream up in our kitchen, and I'm going to bake some gingerbread cookies and then write on them in cuneiform and then bake them. So I will have delicious cookies. You will get to see me make a fool of myself in the kitchen, and it should be quite fun. So thank you all for joining me. Sorry. Hopefully by Sunday I may have finished coughing on everything. But thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, as ever. It was a delight to speak to you all. And remember, until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask, how do you know that? Bye, guys.